Welcome back. Today, we're talking about something you probably have in your hand or at least within arm's reach right now, your phone. It's our map, it's our memory, it's our social life. But every time we use it, it creates this incredibly detailed digital shadow. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how law enforcement can follow that shadow to track where we go and search our most private data.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. Your phone holds your conversations, your random thoughts you type into a search bar, your political opinions, pretty much your entire social world. So the question we're really digging into today is, how much of that deeply personal world can the police actually get their hands on?
When you boil it all down, there are basically two main ways in for investigators. First, there's finding you, your physical location in the real world by tracking your phone. And second, there's getting inside the phone itself to access that, absolute treasure trove of personal data. We're going to unpack the tools and the tactics they use for both. So let's kick things off with part one, how they find you. We've all seen it a million times in movies, right? The team is huddled around a glowing map, watching that little blinking dot move across the city. But how does that actually work in the real world? Well, the classic method, the one that started it all, is called network triangulation. You see, even when your phone is just sitting in your pocket, it's constantly talking to, or pinging, nearby cell towers to make sure it has the best connection. And it's that constant chatter that can give away your general location. The way it works is actually pretty simple and kind of clever. Your phone sends out its signal, the network clocks how long that signal takes to hit different towers, and that tells them how far you are from each one. Then they just combine the data from at least 3 of those towers, and they can basically draw circles on a map. That one little spot where all 3 circles overlap, boom, that's you. But, basic triangulation is pretty old school at this point. Technology has moved on, and the tools police have today are way, way more powerful. And honestly, a lot more controversial. Okay, so check this out. A regular cell tower, its job is simple: give you service. But a stingray is something else entirely. It's a device used by police that pretends to be a cell tower. It puts out a signal that's so strong, it forces every single phone in the area to disconnect from its real network and connect to it instead. It's basically a digital dragnet, scooping up the unique ID of every device around, whether it belongs to a person of interest or just someone walking by. But here's a wilder thought. What if the police didn't even need their own expensive hardware to find you? What if they could just buy your location history? This quote from an AP investigation really hits the nail on the head, because there's this massive, mostly unregulated market for our personal data. Get ready for this number: 15 billion. That's how many location signals are reportedly sucked up from apps on our phones and sold to data brokers every single day. A company called Fog Data Science buys up this data, packages it neatly, and then sells access to law enforcement. So police can just log in, type in a device ID, and see where you've been, where you sleep, or you work, all by buying data you volunteered just by using an app. So that's how they can find your location. But the phone itself, that's the real prize. What happens when the police actually get your device in their hands? That brings us to part 2, the tools they use to pull out every last bit of your data. The main technology here is something called a mobile device forensic tool, or MDFT. And honestly, this digital crowbar analogy is perfect. It's a piece of hardware and software built to do one thing: smash through your phone's security, get past your password, and make a full, perfect copy of everything inside. And the amount of stuff these things can pull out is just staggering. We're talking a complete mirror image of your digital life, your call logs, every text and email you've ever sent, all your photos, your private chats on social media, your entire search history. It can even pull up files you thought you deleted. As one expert said, it's like a window into the soul, and it's all just laid out there for investigators to search. Okay, so hearing all that, you're probably thinking, well, they definitely need a warrant from a judge for that kind of search, right? Well, not always. And that brings us to part 3. And one of the biggest gray areas in digital privacy law. The Fourth Amendment is what's supposed to protect us from unreasonable government searches. And in 2014, the Supreme Court was very clear that because our phones hold the privacies of life, police need a warrant to search them. But there's always been this big exception to the warrant rule: consent. And here's the key. Police can often just get around the whole warrant process simply by asking for your permission. And as this data from Seattle shows, this isn't some rare thing. A full 1/3 of all phone searches were done without a warrant, based only on consent. The problem is, most people don't know they have the right to say no or what they're really agreeing to when they say yes.
And if you want to see how dangerous this consent loophole can be, just look at this case from Wisconsin. A guy, Mr. Birch, agrees to let police look at his text messages for a pretty minor hit and run. But instead of just looking at the texts, they copy his entire phone. The hit and run case gets closed, but they hang on to that data. Then, 2 months later, a totally different police department uses that same data copy, without a new warrant, to build a homicide case against him. And the court said it was all legal. It just shows how one limited yes can become an all-access pass to your entire life.
So we've seen the tech, we've seen the legal gray areas. But let's zoom out for a second. Why does any of this matter if you have nothing to hide? What's the real cost of all this surveillance? Well, the stakes for society are actually huge. You've got dragnet surveillance, where tools like stingrays just sweep up everybody's data, guilty or innocent. You've got potential chilling effects, where people might be scared to go to a protest if they know their location is being logged. And then you have this key legal idea called the third-party doctrine. Basically, it's the argument that if you voluntarily give your data to a third party, like a social media app, it's not legally private anymore. And that is the loophole that allows police to just buy your most sensitive location data from a broker, no warrant needed. And at the end of the day, all of this leaves us with a really big, really complicated question. Our phones aren't a luxury anymore. They're essential for work, for family, for just participating in modern life. So how do we, as a society, balance the very real need for law enforcement to investigate crimes with our fundamental rights to be left alone? That is the central privacy question of our time. Thanks for tuning in.